In the 1970s, you could be fined for skating into a bathroom or arrested for frowning at a police officer. And yes, there were towns where dogs legally had to wear diapers. These weren't jokes. They were real laws enforced across America. The 70s gave us disco, drive-ins, and shag carpet dreams, but also some of the strangest, most unbelievable rules ever written. Let's dive into 13 real laws from the 1970s. That'll make you say, wait, that was illegal? Why would anyone put an ice cream cone in their back pocket? Well, in Kentucky during the 1970s, that odd habit wasn't just frowned upon, it was illegal. The law wasn't about melting messes or attracting ants. It was about horse theft. See, back in the day, stealing a horse outright could get you hanged. But if a horse followed you, that was a legal loophole. So clever thieves would stick a cone in their back pocket, lure a horse away, and claim, "Hey, it just followed me." By the time the 70s rolled around, the law was still on the books, even though most folks weren't exactly leading stallions down Main Street anymore. But that didn't stop police from enforcing it in certain areas, just in case someone got too creative at the county fair. Now, if that sounds weird, just wait. In some towns, even your dog needed government-approved underwear to step outside. Let's talk about diapers for dogs. Yes, you heard that right. In parts of the US during the 1970s, dogs were legally required to wear diapers in public. Why? Because some cities were waging a full-on war against sidewalk mess. Before the rise of pooper-scooper laws, people let their dogs go wherever and just kept walking. So to keep public parks and sidewalks clean and avoid confrontations, officials introduced the weirdest fix imaginable: doggy diapers. These weren't high-tech or cute. Picture a plastic-wrapped job with rubber bands. Not exactly runway ready, but if your pup was caught without one, you could face a hefty fine. Pet owners were outraged. Some protested, some just stayed home. And in cities like San Francisco and New York, the debate over pet hygiene hit local newspapers like wildfire. Now imagine dealing with all that, and then being told your bathtub could also land you in trouble. Up next, bathtubs for donkeys. And no, that's not a typo.
But when the lights came back on, it was the donkey who was taking a shower. Oh my goodness!
Here's a law you won't believe. In some towns during the 1970s, it was illegal to keep a donkey in your bathtub. Sounds like a setup for a joke, but it actually happened. Back in the 1920s, a rancher in Arizona let his donkey sleep in an old bathtub. One night, heavy rain caused a flash flood. The donkey, still in the tub, got washed a mile downstream. It took a full search party and a lot of chaos to rescue the poor thing. So what did the town do? They passed a law banning donkeys in bathtubs. And decades later, the law was still on the books, enforced in several places, even into the 1970s. It's one of those better safe than sorry rules that no one really expected to need twice. But speaking of strange laws that stuck around, wait until you hear what could get you arrested over polka dots. In the 1970s America, you could be fined or even arrested for adding polka dots to the American flag. Yes, polka dots. The US flag code made it illegal to alter the flag's appearance in any disrespectful way. That meant no tie-dye, no graffiti, no stylish reinterpretations. Not even for art, fashion, or protests. To many, the flag wasn't just fabric, it was sacred, and touching it meant serious trouble. One artist in the 70s tried painting the flag with colorful dots for a gallery show. The result? Police at the door and a very quick takedown. Even wearing the flag as a t-shirt could be considered a violation, depending on where you were. It's wild to think a fashion choice could get you charged with disrespecting the nation. But we're just getting warmed up, because in some churches, even your facial hair could get you kicked out. Let's talk about mustaches and morality. Imagine getting kicked out of church just because of your mustache. In the 1970s, a few churches across the US actually banned facial hair. claiming it was distracting, rebellious, or even sinful. Some pastors believed mustaches and beards were signs of vanity or defiance, especially during the counterculture wave. Young men showing up to Sunday service with long sideburns or shaggy facial hair, that didn't fly in certain pews. In some small-town congregations, ushers were instructed to deny entry to anyone who didn't meet the church's grooming standards. No beard, no blessings. And while not technically a government law, these church rules were serious business. Some members were shamed, others left their congregations altogether. All that fuss over a patch of facial hair makes you wonder what else they were trying to clean up back then. Like, say, a horse wearing pants in a courtroom. No joke, let's go there. It sounds like a bad cartoon gag, but in parts of the US, there were actual laws about dressing horses properly. The most famous case, a city ordinance that made it illegal for horses to appear in public without pants. Well, technically, it was about covering up the animals' private areas, especially during parades or public events. Officials worried that exposed animals were offensive or indecent, particularly around children. So some cities required equestrian performers to strap fabric coverings over their horses' rear ends. It looked ridiculous, like oversized bloomers for farm animals. But the law was real, and while it wasn't common across all states, it reflected how far some places would go to enforce public decency, even on four-legged citizens. Strange? Definitely. But it's not just horses that had to behave. In some towns, even your own facial expression could get you in legal trouble. Let's talk about frowning at the police. You could be arrested for making a face. Seriously, in some places during the 1970s, frowning at a police officer could fall under disorderly conduct. It sounds ridiculous, but the law gave officers wide power to judge disrespectful or threatening behavior. And yes, that included a sarcastic smirk or an angry glare. Depending on the cop, that frown could be seen as provocation, defiance, or just plain attitude. Some people were fined, others spent a night in jail, all for the crime of looking too annoyed. Civil rights groups criticized the law for being too vague and ripe for abuse. But in tense moments, especially protests, this rule was often used. Think about it. Getting charged not for what you said, but for how your face looked. And yet, that still might make more sense than the next law, where slurping soup was considered a public offense. Slurping your soup too loudly? That might have cost you. In parts of New Jersey during the 1970s, slurping soup in public was considered a violation of local conduct laws. It wasn't just about noise, it was about manners. City councils actually pushed for polite dining ordinances to promote civilized behavior in restaurants and public spaces. Slurping, burping, even chewing too loudly could be met with dirty looks or a citation. Some diners were stunned to be scolded or even fined over their table habits. It sounds silly now, but at the time, these laws were seen as efforts to preserve community standards and discourage uncultured behavior. And honestly, have you ever sat next to someone who slurps nonstop? Maybe it's not that crazy. But speaking of furniture etiquette, in one college town, simply leaving a couch on your porch could get you in serious trouble. Let's go there. If you've ever lived near a college campus, you've probably seen it. That worn-out couch sitting proudly on a front porch, faded, lumpy, and somehow always sticky. But in the 1970s, some towns made it illegal. Why? Because college students turned porch couches into party thrones, and sometimes bonfires. After a few late-night incidents where upholstered furniture went up in flames, city officials had enough. Laws were passed banning indoor furniture outdoors, citing fire hazards and public eyesores. In places like Boulder, Colorado, or parts of Ohio, violators faced fines or had their beloved couches confiscated. Students protested, of course, but fire marshals didn't care how vibey it looked. It became a symbol of the clash between fun-loving youth and city code enforcers. And speaking of wheels turning, let's talk about a law that targeted something far more wholesome: roller skates in bathrooms. You know that feeling, flying down a hallway on roller skates, music blasting, hair flowing, then suddenly, tile floor, wet shoes, a sharp turn into the bathroom. Yeah, someone's going down. That's exactly why in the 1970s, some cities passed laws banning roller skates inside public restrooms. It sounds absurd, but too many kids, and yes, adults, were skating into tiled bathrooms and wiping out hard. Slippery floors and wheeled shoes were a bad mix. There were injuries, cracked sinks, even lawsuits. So local officials said, no more skates where people pee. Some malls even posted signs near food court bathrooms, please remove skates before entering. It was one of those rare moments when a law actually made sense. Until you realize that, around the same time, driving a black car on Sundays was banned in some towns. Yep, black cars. Sundays, illegal. Imagine waking up on a quiet Sunday morning in the 70s, putting on your slacks, grabbing your keys, and realizing you can't drive your car because it's black. In some American towns, it was actually illegal to drive a black car on Sundays. No, not because of heat absorption. This bizarre law was rooted in religious tradition. Some communities saw Sunday as a day of peace, reflection, and light. Black, associated with mourning or worldly vanity, was considered inappropriate for the Sabbath. The law wasn't always enforced, but it was on the books, and in some towns, drivers were warned or ticketed. It's hard to imagine now when black is everywhere, from limos to luxury SUVs. But back then, your car's paint job might have been seen as a moral statement. And while your car had to stay parked, you better watch what you wore to the beach too. Because up next, singing in a swimsuit, also illegal. Picture this. It's a hot summer day in the 70s. You're at the beach, rocking your one-piecer trunks. The radio's playing the Bee Gees, and you're singing along. Congratulations, you just broke the law. In certain towns, it was actually illegal to sing in public while wearing a swimsuit. This was part of a wider set of decency laws aimed at curbing inappropriate behavior, and especially around families or children. Authorities feared that singing, especially loud or energetic, while underdressed might attract unwanted attention. Basically, the idea was, if you're in a swimsuit, keep quiet and keep walking. Some beaches even posted signs reminding visitors to maintain decorum. Was it excessive? Absolutely. But it reflected how seriously some communities took public modesty. Then again, modesty didn't matter much. When there were alligators chained to fire hydrants, yeah, that's next. Only in America could this be a real law. In the 1970s, some towns, especially in Florida, made it illegal to tie your alligator to a fire hydrant. Let that sink in. Not having an alligator. Not walking it on a leash. No, specifically tying it to a fire hydrant. Turns out some exotic pet owners were bringing gators into town. And when they ran errands, they just chained them up outside like a bicycle. Naturally, this caused panic. Firefighters couldn't access hydrants. Passers-by ran screaming. One poor guy just wanted a sandwich and ended up in the ER. So lawmakers stepped in, writing one of the most bizarrely specific laws you'll ever hear. And that, in a weird way, sums up the 70s. It was a time when the world was changing fast, and towns were scrambling to write rules to keep up. We just looked back at 13 things from the 1970s that once felt totally normal, but were surprisingly illegal. From singing in swimsuits to couch crimes and gator laws, these odd rules captured a wild, unforgettable era in American life. Which one shocked you the most, or did we miss one you remember? Let us know in the comments, and if you love strange bits of history, don't forget to subscribe for more on Dear Old America.